Mobile Suit Gundam, a franchise where wars in space are waged with giant robots piloted by emotionally complex characters. It took until this year for me to realize how much of a fan I was, so I started learning everything I could about it to make up for all the lost years, and catching an addiction to plastic along the way. During my descent into gun madness, I learned they made a movie in the 90s, titled G-Saviour. A live-action movie. This is not an anime. If you clicked on this video, I'm assuming you don't need an explanation why live-action anime adaptation is a cursed incantation. And this movie doesn't exactly have a great reputation. To a more seasoned fan, I'd imagine seeing another video about it is like beating an already dead horse. But hey, I like seeing value in bad media. Maybe I could find some here. Maybe it's not the train wreck I keep hearing it is. Okay, it kind of is, but I don't like railing against a failed product without at least interrogating why it's so bad. What led to G-Saviour being like this? Is the inexplicable PS2 game sequel that I tacked on to the end of this video any better? First, some context.
Chapter 1.
The most important production info here comes from a Zeonic Republic article, which is summarizing a Japanese-only publication. So shout out to those guys for doing the hard part for me. Anyways, as boldly stated on most covers for the movie, G-Saviour was created to help celebrate the Gundam franchise's 20th anniversary in 1999. Inspired by the groundbreaking digital effects of Jurassic Park, an experimental division of Gundam's parent studio Sunrise was formed in 1995 by animator and manager Koichi Inoue to explore modeling and eventually depicting mobile suits with 3D graphics. It took decades to look good and be cost-effective, since nowadays most if not all mecha anime use 3D models for the robots. But I'm jumping too far ahead here. This is when the 3D that would eventually replace hand-drawn robots was first tested. It's worth noting at this point that franchise creator Yoshiyuki Tomino was not involved at any stage of production on G-Saviour. His 20th anniversary contribution would end up being Turn A Gundam. In 1997, a short CGI test featuring new mobile suit designs was made, with many of the assets eventually being repurposed for the final film. At this point, they hadn't figured out who would be producing the movie, and it took until the end of 1998 to settle on the Canadian company Pulsar Television. It then took only a couple months to throw together, with casting and location scouting beginning before the screenplay was even finished. Something that ended up impacting the overall presence of mobile suits in the movie for an insane reason I'll reveal later. Costumes from Starship Troopers were also recycled. That's not a knock against this movie. Recycling props and costumes is common practice. I just think it's a funny detail.
I'm from Buenos Aires, and I say kill them all! Yeah! Oh, yeah!
Despite G-Saviour ultimately being a Canadian co-production, Inoue wanted to collaborate with a Hollywood studio. The one he ended up going with was the California-based Digital Muse, who finished the digital effects. Digital effects that had to be finished 10 days ahead of schedule so the movie could be screened at a charity event. So to summarize, this project started in Japan, was filmed and finished in Canada, and the animation was outsourced to America. Never research international co-productions, it'll make your head hurt. As an aside, this wasn't the first attempt to get North America interested in Gundam, or even the first time it was live action. In the early 90s, Gundam was introduced in America with translations of the original show's novelizations. Later, an English dub was produced for the 3 compilation films, and an American game featuring live-action cutscenes titled Gundam 0079 The War for Earth, released in 1997. It goes without saying, but it's hilariously bad. It's a loose adaptation of the original show's story where nobody looks how you'd expect except for Char Aznable.
I will wreak my vengeance on the whole Zabby family, and the trail of blood starts with you.
Char, you craven traitor.
It's awesome.
For the freedom of Char!
And those were just the English projects that saw the light of day. Recently, a pilot simply titled Revolution was uncovered that would also use CGI for the mobile suits. But I'm getting too far off topic. The point is that G-Saviour was not the first attempt at an English live-action Gundam adaptation, but was intended to be the culmination of efforts to showcase what a CGI Gundam movie could be. And in execution, it reveals why we haven't been threatened with another one until recently.
Chapter 2.
Unique to most live-action anime adaptations, though, is the fact that this one is actually canon. Not that it really matters, it's so far removed that every character I like is dead, but it is a cool touch, and in an ideal world this would be worth recommending as a good standalone entry to jump into without any prior context of what Gundam is. On paper, and only on paper, it succeeds at what a lot of live-action adaptations struggle to do by being a companion piece. Most of the time, adaptations like this just poorly adapt the first story of the source material. This time, they're telling their own original bad story, with its own confusing lore it barely explains. I've been avoiding getting into it for too long. What's happening here?
Attaboy.
Set in the year 223 UC, humanity has created floating, self-sustaining space colonies called sides that, after various incidents, are now governed by a single oppressive regime called the Congress of Settlement Nations, shortened to Consent. See, it's ironic because they're the bad guys and they never ask for it. The Earth Federation seemingly learned nothing from the events of Zeta Gundam. Consent is run by power-hungry fascists, and protagonist/mobile suit pilot Mark Curran is not a fan. Distinguishing this from past conflicts is an environmentalist angle. When a new breakthrough that could save the Earth's oceans is discovered and threatened to be brushed under the rug,
bioluminescence is real.
Mark, with his fiancée tagging along, joins a group of rebels based out of the Gaia settlement to fight back. Within Gaia is a secret organization called the Illuminati. Wait, what?
Mark, how much do you know of the organization I work for?
The Illuminati?
It's apparently not the fabled historical Illuminati. This group has only existed for 5 years, but holy shit, that's just funny on its face, right? The Illuminati being in a Gundam movie?
I'm not a big fan of conspiracy theories, so maybe you need to sit in your tank a while longer and come up with a better story.
A crap ton of exposition and inexplicable adultery later. More on that in a bit. The movie progresses to a space battle full of dated CGI where Mark faces off with Jack, a rival character the movie spends as much time developing as it took for me to read this sentence. The movie ends on a hopeful note for future installments in the G-Saviour series, a note the video game picks up. There was probably a version of this summary where I could have mentioned the Gundam the title of the movie is referring to, the G-Saviour, but like all mecha anime, this movie focuses on the characters. And here, the characters suck.
We've nurtured its development from the genius of the Savior team.
Get out of town.
Mark stands out as the most developed. He's a cocky quipper eager to butt heads with authority who becomes a key player in the Illuminati rebellion. My impression of this guy wasn't terrible at first. He's amusing. The actor is doing a decent job. Yet as the movie goes on, his motivations become more and more strange, and by the end I don't know what they were trying to do with this guy. They overcorrect with the quippy dialogue, even if it is mildly amusing.
No kiss for you.
More on him later. The acting is flat, yet I can't bring myself to lay too much blame on the actors when they have to deliver clunky dialogue like this.
It sure wouldn't hurt if you could help me show the boys club that I have the political skills to be in the special task force, strategy and planning.
First off, the exposition is confused. In the opening narration, they're talking about sides and space colonies, and all that lines up with Gundam lore and is presented in an understandable way to the layman. It sounds good. Unfortunately, when it comes to establishing its own concepts, it stumbles out of the starting gate. When the narrator is talking about the Gaia settlement at the start, the visual we see is Earth.
But it's the fate of an emerging side known as Gaia that is destined to write a new chapter in the history of mankind.
Gaia, you know, that's sometimes what fictional settings call Earth. So I just assumed the narrator was explaining that the Earth is now considered a settlement, and at some point had its name changed to Gaia, but nope, that's just the editor and the script not being in harmony because Gaia and Earth are two separate things. Gaia is a colony in space. The Earth is the Earth. Movies are a visual medium, and right away, we are being misled. This is a poorly written intro that glosses over details in a way that primes the viewer to get confused and later get frustrated when the details don't add up. Which isn't good, because G-Saviour is so convinced it has interesting details.
All that money and all you have to show for the seaweed.
Environmentally conscious narratives have to do a lot to not come off as preachy. I'm talking stuff like Captain Planet, where they beat the message over the viewer's head, like, duh, give a hoot, don't pollute. And G-Saviour just doesn't add the right amount of texture to make it thematically interesting. The environmentalism isn't incorporated in a way that makes you think because everything is so surface level. The bad guys want to stop the good guys from solving universal hunger because that's what bad guys do. They want to use the seaweed production as an excuse to keep lording over the settlements. What I'm left with is a movie, despite being in a franchise that has a lot to say about war and the nature of people, I feel is not willing to make any interesting statements, and the conflict is too simple to justify the long stretches without any robot action. G-Saviour spends the time it has to develop its world spewing nonsense instead.
I was so naive to think you were about something greater.
You stupid bitch!
Despite how largely bad this movie is, it does hit enough of the broad strokes to feel like a Gundam entry. A bad Gundam entry, but one that slots into the overall series nonetheless. Yeah, there are parts of this where I'm like, okay, I'm watching a Gundam movie. Scenes like third parties profiting off of conflict, like what the Illuminati is doing with the Gaian Rebellion. You know, that's thematically pretty Tomino. The final battle is genuine schlocky fun. The clash between Mark and Jack is the most fun scene in the movie, and impressive given this was made with TV money. While researching, I found that the dated CGI was a sticking point for reviewers, but I don't know, the battle scenes are a highlight for me. Maybe it's the horrible compression and it looks worse with higher clarity, but even then, the enjoyment skyrockets during these scenes. I would hope so. The movie sacrificed everything else so that this could be the only redeeming quality. The mech designs translate pretty damn well to 3D, too. The designer of the original RX-78, Kunio Okawara, was still working at Sunrise, and along with series artist Masahisa Suzuki, the G-Saviour design is pretty darn cool. The latter actually made an illustration of Mark Curran for the movie's Japanese novelization. This is my favorite discovery while doing research for this video, seeing him realized in this neuron-activating art style. The designs made for the movie by Kevin Ishioka aren't bad either. I really like the MS Rai Jack pilots at the end. If there's a bright spot in any of this, it's the mech designs and how they were translated to 3D. Sunrise set out to prove the potential of Gundam realized with computer graphics, and in a way they succeeded. Test complete. The robots look pretty decent. It's a shame they're barely in the movie. This is jarring because while the mobile suits weren't the main focus of the shows, they were always present. They could be seen being used to move crates, clean up debris, enforce the law. And yeah, this is a low-budget B-movie, it can't afford to show half of that.
Every time I move my arm, it costs the Cartoon Network $42.
But only one or two giant robots showing up in the first 40 minutes in a 90-minute feature is pretty dire. There's a very quick shot of one guarding a fancy government dinner party, and yeah, more of that please, it's world building. It says a lot about the consent regime feeling the need to showcase their military presence without directly commenting on it. Stuff like this is good. Learning that the first draft of the movie didn't feature mobile suits at all,
What?
the lack of emphasis on them for most of the finished product makes too much sense. And that's because this team for this movie was assembled under one condition, that they knew nothing about Gundam.
What?
While this is, like, baffling, I get on a creative level why you would want to approach an adaptation like this. A fresh perspective unimpeded by references and nerd culture has potential to make something unique, different. Some of my favorite Godzilla movies were directed by a man who did not like Godzilla. Sometimes all you need to make a good movie is just a little context from the source. Unfortunately, in the case of this production, they weren't given enough context. The first draft of the screenplay that was being written as casting and location scouting began ended up not considering the presence of mobile suits in the story, I guess because they weren't deemed important enough to initially include. The scene at the beginning where Mark saves another mobile suit pilot was added during a revision, after Inoue stepped in to say, hey, giant robots are kind of an important aspect of this series. The final product feeling enough like a Gundam entry is a miracle, but at the end of the day, the plot and characters are so boring that the lack of giant robots in this giant robot movie is really felt.
Okay? Move up.
Who's Fox? Who's gonna do that?
Yeah, I don't know. Now. Be good.
There also just isn't enough time for actions and motivations in this movie to make sense, and the biggest element that suffers is the characterization of Mark and how inconsistent it is.
Oh,
She may be old, but she's still got a few good moves in her.
He's established to be a guy who'll do anything if it means saving lives. He's willing to butt heads with superior officers and will go against direct orders because he's too cool to follow them. But also, he does things by the book? I thought he was a loose cannon.
Why didn't you just finish the job? Sorry, Jack. It's gonna be a hell of a lot more fun watching your ass fry before a congressional subcommittee.
And wait, why is he going back to consent to stand trial at the end of the movie? He gets convinced not to, but why was he considering it? He doesn't respect these people. Is he a rebel or is he a bootlicker? The movie simply doesn't know. He drops everything after a single meeting with Illuminati rebel Cynthia, and yeah, the first 20 minutes were setting up why he would want to defect, so it makes sense in the movie's logic. But immediately after doing the very thing the movie was forecasting he would do, he starts complaining.
You know, an hour ago I was quite content with the way my life was going.
Were you? You seemed pretty discontent with how Consent was handling things, and you were ready to pick a fight over it. Doesn't seem like a life worth being complacent in. I can't help but compare this to Zeta, where we see why Camille would escape his colony and make enemies with the similarly evil Titans as soon as the moment presented itself. It's good to see agency with your main character, so Mark's indecisiveness in this critical moment of characterization, the end of the first act of the story, feels out of character with what was set up before.
They're making this more than this was. Those people weren't even on. I was quite content with the way my life was going.
I feel like I'm nitpicking, hopping mad over one line of dialogue. But when I'm half an hour into a Gundam movie and there's only been one mobile suit, I start gnawing on the poorly written stuff it chooses to focus on.
You know, an hour ago...
Speaking of incoherent, why in the middle of the story this movie is telling do they bog it down with a fucking love triangle? It's not even a love triangle, it's adultery. Mark, the main character of the movie the audience is supposed to like, is cheating on his fiancée with Cynthia, and there was nothing to set up why he would do this. He wasn't flirting with Cynthia before now, and his relationship with Mimi seems stable if not non-committal.
Reason number 17 why it's time you move in with me.
As if the first 16 weren't reason enough.
I'm sorry. I don't know why I did that.
There was nothing foreshadowing this. What happened here? Was there a cutscene exploring this, or is the more likely answer that the production of this movie past its initial test animation was nightmarishly fast and they didn't have time to fix any of the script issues? Mimi was gonna betray the Resistance anyways? The movie foreshadowed that earlier?
I want a complete list of all Curran's friends on that rig.
I would think Mimi would be of great help in that department, sir.
This bullshit with Mark just gives her a reason to do it without any regrets, and I get to hate him even more.
And I think I need to talk to Mimi.
I wouldn't be so frustrated with this if the movie hadn't sacrificed everything else just so it could botch developing these really stupid characters.
A simple thank you really would have sufficed.
Was that a fucking whoosh sound effect? Yeah, okay, the sound design here is really funny. Everything's from a stock library, and you've likely heard every sound effect here in a video game.
Please, you don't understand!
The movie's at its best when it's being accidentally funny. And I wish the movie had more unintentionally funny moments like this. I can't even recommend this as a so bad it's good movie for a Discord call, because large stretches of it are so damn boring. The characters, dialogue, and plot are poorly written.
Great.
It's got nothing interesting to say on a thematic level. Outside of the factoid of this being the first, and at the time of this writing, only live-action Gundam movie, the most it has going for it is an entertaining final battle and funny out-of-context clips.
You're about to lose at the hands of your own machines.
The plot sucks, but the robots are cool. I'd say this is a tale as old as time if Gundam's very inception wasn't it having a good cast in addition to cool robots, so G-Saviour is still falling short. If this had the same production values but actually had 5 or 6 episodes to breathe, I like to think it could have been a cult classic. The ingredients are here. It already feels like a campy TV show. It was just somehow never committed to that medium. I could wax poetic about what could have been for another many minutes. At the end of the day, I thought G-Saviour was just crap. Interesting for being the only one of its kind, and worthy of its infamous reputation. But what about the video game?
Chapter 3.
Wow, it's been a while since I've talked about a video game. Apologies in advance for the bitrate, I realized it looked like this when it was too late. Oops. G-Saviour the video game released a year after the movie on the PlayStation 2, and it picks up right where it left off. Mark and the rest of the characters from the film are nowhere to be seen, thank God. In his place is Reed Fox, a member of Illuminati's Lightning Squad. And Consent is still up to no good, so there's still a battle to be fought. In Consent's forces is a mysterious man named Rhyssus, who becomes Reed's rival. Not like spoilers really matter for this 25-year-old video game, because it's pretty obvious as soon as it's introduced. Reed had an apprentice named Rise, and shocker, Rhyssus is Rise. He's eventually revealed to have been brainwashed. Consent was creating completely autonomous mobile suits, and Rhyssus was being taken over by some kind of AI, which leads to a final clash between him and Reed.
Too bad! But I'll have no mercy this time!
It's a basic story following a lot of anime tropes. Reed and the operator Asaka's stilted romance is still a better romance than what was in the movie. But the basic characterization, and especially the voice acting, steers the whole character side of things directly into unintentional comedy.
G3rd becomes your baby from now on.
You can kiss your ass goodbye, punk!
I'm not playing games with you, you heartless suckers! Shut the fuck up!
It's so terrible, I love it. The entire game is written in Japanese but voice acted in English, so despite not being localized, it's still pretty understandable. No patch for this one required. While I'm still on the subject of presentation, the music's pretty cool too. A week out from actually hearing it, I can't recall many tracks off the top of my head, but it's definitely better than the generic stuff that was in the movie. Since it was made on the franchise's home soil, the game feels even closer to the overall Gundam timeline, incorporating more historical references and tropes from the shows. The G-Saviour is destroyed by Rhyssus early on and is salvaged to become the G3-Saviour, kinda like how the mobile suits get upgrades throughout the anime. It's also cool for gameplay variety since each mech has its own strengths and weaknesses, though there is one I think is the objective best. And with that, I think it's time to talk about how this thing plays. I like the way the game controls. The camera gets stuck all the time, but what PS2 game didn't have a bad camera, you know?
Oh my god.
You can fire a beam rifle, use a limited supply of special weapons, hover around. I especially like how this feels because of how quickly you zoom around enemies and projectiles, as well as put up a shield and leap out of enemy fire. I didn't end up using this maneuver a lot because the hover is much better for dodging. There's also a screen nuke that looks a little weird on my totally real PS2. I didn't find much use for it. It got me killed more often than not. The G-Saviour may look bulky, but it's actually quite fragile. No matter what difficulty you're on, I chose normal for this playthrough, all it takes is 3 or 4 hits and it goes down. So the only time you're not holding up a shield to absorb the damage is when you're lowering it to refill the stock. The basic gameplay loop here is managing your regenerating hover and shield in tandem with blasting through enemy lines. And it works. It's pretty fun. Even if the game doesn't put its best foot forward, the opening stages are a little slow. It's when you unlock the G3 where the speed and enemy density gets cranked up, and it's more exciting for it. The game's at its best when it's on the brink of becoming a bullet hell, when it's just manageable enough to get through a level and looking cool while doing it. The Ground Assault G3, unlocked towards the middle of the game, is low-key the best mobile suit here. The stats aren't great, but it makes up for it by replacing the hover with an infinite roller. So one of the limitations you had to manage instantly becomes a non-issue, and its arsenal of weapons gives it more combat options. Use this one whenever possible. The beam saber on this suit also comes out the fastest, and yeah, that's helpful because close quarters combat feels awful. I wanted to use the beam saber more on principle because beam sabers are cool as fuck, but it's too slow. It's activated automatically when you get too close to an enemy. You get locked into an animation and it feels horrible. It's best to avoid close quarters combat unless the game is forcing you to. With how cramped the hallways get in later stages, I end up doing it more than I like. The automatic lock-on starts to become a problem in later stages too. Like, check this out. I need to shoot the turret in front of me because it's about to shoot me full of missiles, but I'm locked onto something off-screen so I can't kill it in time. You can change who you're locked onto with the right trigger, but it wasn't working for me here. The level design throughout the game is basically a series of dressed-up hallways with no room for exploration. No branching paths with secrets or items or ammo. It's a long stretch of road. That stinks for replayability, but it's not bad on its own. I like flying through the levels without having to worry about going the wrong way while blowing up everything in sight. It's mindless fun. I like it a lot. It's not terrible. What is consistently terrible is the boss fight at the end of every stage.
You will never defeat me. Impossible! Their suits are way too strong.
They're either stupidly easy or stupidly cheesy, no in between. You find a spot where you can hit them over and over again, or you die in 2 hits. Yep, it's one of those games. Short but hard. 8 stages, 8 boss fights. It's not that bad early on, but the difficulty spike towards the end is not graceful, and a lot of it is the product of janky design instead of fair challenge. Most boss rooms are checkpoints, where the life and ammo you enter with are what you're gonna have when you die and restart. It's annoying. For the best chance at the boss, you gotta finish the stage without getting hit. It's doable up until the final stage. Yeah, it's the final level. It's supposed to be hard. But it's not only a long stretch of the most bullshit enemy formations in the entire game, but it ends with a 3-phase boss fight. The final phase of the boss fight, without hyperbole, might be one of the worst fights in a commercially released video game. Okay, there might be a bit of hyperbole there, but it was really stupid. Also, yeah, the final boss is named Raven. Anyone who's played Armored Core probably has a better joke for that than me. I haven't played Armored Core. Because of how damage is scaled in this game, if you don't step forward the moment the fight starts, you get killed in 1 hit, even while holding up the shield with full health. I eventually won by doing this, but I don't feel like I accomplished anything. The game cheated, so I had to cheat back.
Shut the fuck up!
Despite these glaring, stupid issues, the arcadey gameplay carries G-Saviour. I can't stay mad at a game with voice acting this atrocious either. That stuff's just funny.
Great performance! You control your suit with such dexterity.
I like managing the supplies and speed. It's just that this is an early 2000s PS2 game and they hadn't quite figured out the balance of fair challenge and fun yet. If they haven't already, whoever's making Gundam games should look back at how this game approached combat and take notes. I'd love to see a more refined version of what G-Saviour attempted. I think I'd like the Armored Core games actually. They seem to be more of what I'm talking about. And with that, I think it's time to wrap this up. I don't know how to write these.
Chapter 4.
I can't speak to G-Saviour's overall impact on the franchise, I'm still pretty new to this whole thing, but I'm told its latest appearance was getting blown up in an episode of Gundam Build Fighters, and I think that's pretty funny. At least it looks fantastic in the brief time it's on screen. A series of audio dramas were made to coincide with the film's Japanese release, and they got translated while I was working on this video. Which is cool, but like, I don't have to be thorough, I've got other things to do. I don't think Gundam in live action is doomed to fail. We've had decades of other projects proving people want to see mecha iconography and tropes brought into other mediums. Pacific Rim is effectively a mecha anime realized in live action, and it's a lot of fun for that. The medium was never the issue, the lack of budget and the bad writing was. G-Saviour the movie proved that mobile suits could be realized in CG, it's just that everything else about it sucks. There's no one way to pull something like this off, and I'm not going to pretend like I have all the answers, so if we really need to have another live-action CGI hybrid Gundam movie, my only hope for it is that I like it. That's it, that's the video, goodbye, thanks for watching. Again, thanks for making it to the end of the video. Here's a special shout out to the top tier of patrons, which Patreon has decided to give me in a different order this time. Avok Robot, Adelaide, Alastair Gilmore, An Actual Demetrodon, Celis Ortesia, Chronicler Waba, Chuck Doom, CMG, Krazak53, Irrelevant 402, Dude Bro, Easterman, Aotis, Eric Guzda, Eric Lutz, Fujoshi Urinal, Godzilla Rich, Gojira King, Greninja Zack, Heiam Mooney, Iron Knight, It's God Z, Jacob Hinch, J King, Janos Firewalker, Kidorian, Cool Bell Zero, Queer Kaiju, Lobotomy Blues, Mego Muddy, Marpzilla, Mech, Manila Fan, Milan Nguyen, Neon Yaminair, Nerdy Gamer 556, Old Metal Possum, Red Comet Harry, Ryan Santa Cruz, Sammy Likes Toku, Serix, Seamus Kelly, Solid Lib, Swansea, Tato Salad, and Z-Bolt. Thank you all very much.